Have you ever wondered why, despite your best intentions and New Year's resolutions, the life you yearn for remains just out of reach? Welcome back to Power in Words, your sanctuary from the noise. Today, we are not here to talk about doing more, but about building a quiet, sustainable foundation for the change you seek. If you feel burdened by expectations or overwhelmed by your silent struggles, you are in the right place. Here, we do not judge the pace of your journey or the weight of your silent struggles. Instead, we sit together in shared understanding, exploring the profound depths of the human experience. We are here to remind you that your sensitivity is not a weakness, your doubts are entirely human, and your capacity for quiet growth is limitless. You are not alone in your private battles, and the fact that you are here, actively seeking understanding and self-compassion, is already a beautiful testament to your innate resilience. There is a profound and almost universal ache embedded in the modern human experience, a quiet tension between the life we are currently living and the life we deeply yearn to inhabit. We spend so much of our precious time looking upward at the towering mountains of our ambitions. We visualize the majestic summit. We imagine the crisp air of achievement and the sheer relief that will wash over us. Finally, we think we have become the person we were meant to be. We set massive, shimmering goals. We write them down in brand new journals at the beginning of a calendar year. We declare them silently to ourselves in the quiet hours of the night when sleep evades us and our minds race with endless possibility. The goal becomes a brilliant beacon, shining brightly in the distance, promising us that once we reach it, our deepest insecurities will vanish, our worth will be permanently validated, and our lives will finally begin in earnest. Yet, as anyone who has ever pursued a meaningful personal transformation knows, there is an immense psychological burden hidden within the architecture of a massive goal. But when we fixate only on that distant summit, the reality of today changes. The space between who we are and who we want to be doesn't look like a path. It looks like a terrifying chasm of inadequacy. Every single step that does not result in immediate, highly visible progress feels like a failure. We begin to cruelly measure our daily worth against an idealized future that does not yet exist. In this state of perpetual yearning, the present moment is reduced to nothing more than a frustrating obstacle, a tedious waiting room we feel forced to endure before our real life can commence. This is exactly where the quiet poison of self-doubt begins to seep into our days. We look around and see others who appear to be sprinting effortlessly toward their own summits, their lives curated and polished for public consumption, and we wonder what fundamental flaw exists within us that makes our own journey feel so agonizingly slow and heavy. We have been deeply conditioned by a culture that relentlessly worships the spectacular, the sudden, and the heroic. We are fed endless, intoxicating narratives of dramatic transformations and overnight successes. We are told repeatedly that all we need to succeed is an unending reserve of motivation, a fiery passion that burns constantly, and a willpower made of unbreakable iron. But as a psychologist who has spent countless hours sitting with individuals in their most vulnerable and unguarded moments, I can assure you that this heroic narrative is not only scientifically inaccurate, but it is also profoundly damaging to our emotional well-being. Motivation is a beautiful emotion, but it is entirely unreliable. It functions exactly like a weather system. It rolls in with great force, filling us with sudden energy and fierce conviction, but it inevitably rolls out, leaving us feeling empty, depleted, and deeply confused when the initial excitement fades away into the mundane reality of a Tuesday morning. Willpower is not an infinite magical resource you can summon on command. It is a biological muscle that fatigues rapidly under the constant strain of decision-making, chronic stress, and the daily emotional labor of simply navigating the modern world. When we rely solely on motivation to carry us toward our distant goals, we are unknowingly setting ourselves up for a heartbreaking cycle of soaring enthusiasm followed by inevitable collapse. We wake up one morning feeling deeply tired, overwhelmed by a harsh piece of criticism, or simply weighed down by the ambiguous, nameless sadness that sometimes visits us all. On these particular days, the goal feels impossibly far away. The mountain seems entirely too steep to climb. Because we cannot muster the heroic energy we believe is required to take a massive leap forward, we choose to do nothing at all. And in that quiet space of nothingness, profound shame takes root. We internally label ourselves as lazy, uncommitted, or fundamentally unworthy of the beautiful dreams we hold. We fall into the paralyzing grip of the imposter syndrome, like entirely convinced that our inability to maintain a constant state of high performance is definitive proof that we do not belong in the arenas we so desperately wish to enter. In an era where every digital interaction is meticulously curated, the gap between our messy reality and the polished presentations of others can feel absolutely insurmountable. We scroll through timelines filled with achievements, major milestone announcements, and seemingly effortless triumphs, quietly absorbing the toxic illusion that everyone else has uncovered a secret map to success that we were never given. This digital mirroring deeply distorts our psychological baseline. We forget that we are unfairly comparing our confusing, behind-the-scenes struggles with someone else's carefully edited highlight reel. In this fractured landscape of constant comparison, having a massive goal without a grounding system is a recipe for profound loneliness. We isolate ourselves in our perceived inadequacy, convinced that our fatigue is a rare personal failing rather than a universal symptom of the human condition. It is precisely in this dark space of exhaustion and self-judgment that the profound wisdom of the author James Clear offers a true lifeline. He observed a fundamental truth about human behavior and the architecture of change, noting that you do not rise to the level of your goals, but rather you fall to the level of your systems. This single quiet realization has the power to completely dismantle the anxiety-inducing paradigm of goal obsession. It is a philosophy rooted not in relentless, punishing striving, but in gentle, structural compassion. It shifts our gaze away from the terrifying height of the mountain peak and directs our attention firmly to the ground beneath our feet, to the texture of the soil, and to the steady rhythm of our daily walk. To truly understand the psychological depth of this concept, we must fundamentally redefine what we mean by a system. A system is not a rigid, lifeless spreadsheet or a punishing schedule designed to squeeze every ounce of productivity from your tired soul. A system is the gentle, supportive architecture of your daily life. It is the recurring rhythm of your personal habits, the environment you carefully cultivate around yourself, and the standard operating procedures you fall back on when you are simply too exhausted to think clearly. Your system is what remains standing when your motivation has entirely evaporated. If a grand goal is the beautiful destination you hope to reach, the system is the actual vehicle you travel in. If the vehicle is broken, lacking fuel, or fundamentally misaligned, it does not matter how desperately you desire to reach the destination. You will simply remain stranded on the side of the road, staring longingly at a map, feeling entirely defeated. When we fall, and we all inevitably fall because life is inherently unpredictable and often deeply painful, we do not hit rock bottom. We hit the floor of our habits. We fall precisely to the level of the systems we have built around us. If your system relies entirely on waking up every single day with boundless energy and a fearless heart, your floor is going to be incredibly painful to hit on the days when you are grieving, physically exhausted, or simply deeply human. But if you have deliberately built a system rooted in self-compassion, small manageable actions, and a forgiving environment, your floor becomes a gentle safety net. It catches you softly. It allows you to rest and recover without losing entirely the precious ground you have already covered. Consider the immense psychological friction involved in simply beginning a difficult task. The human brain is naturally wired by evolution to conserve energy, interpreting any sudden demand for intense focus or physical exertion as a potential biological threat. When you rely solely on the massive goal to propel you forward, your brain looks at the monumental effort required to reach that distant finish line and immediately floods your nervous system with profound resistance. You experience this internal flood as procrastination, a sudden urge for distraction, or an overwhelming sense of lethargy. This is not laziness. It is a highly evolved biological protective mechanism. However, a well-designed system brilliantly bypasses this neurological alarm by breaking the intimidating goal down into an almost laughably small daily habit. you remove the perception of threat. The brain does not strongly resist opening a notebook and writing a single sentence. It does not strongly resist putting on walking shoes and stepping onto the front porch. The system becomes the psychological bridge over the deep chasm of resistance, allowing you to begin the process without triggering the paralyzing fear of the whole endeavor. This profound shift in focus has massive implications for our core identity and our psychological healing. For many of us, our self-esteem is deeply fractured because we have spent years subtly breaking promises to ourselves. We set a grand, life-changing goal, we fail to achieve it within our completely arbitrary timeline, and we deeply internalize that failure as a fundamental character flaw. We begin to view ourselves as unreliable people who simply cannot be trusted to follow through on their own desires. But every single time you engage with a small, manageable system, you are casting a powerful vote for a new identity. You are quietly gathering undeniable evidence that you are someone who shows up, even in a very small way, even on the incredibly hard days. You are not simply changing your outward behavior. You are slowly, patiently, and lovingly rebuilding the damaged architecture of your own self-respect. The philosopher Will Durant perfectly encapsulated this phenomenon when he observed that we are what we repeatedly do, and that excellence is therefore not an act, but a habit. Excellence is almost never a sudden, explosive moment of glorious triumph. It is the quiet, almost invisible accumulation of daily devotions. It is the glass of water you choose to drink in the morning. It is the deep, intentional breath you take before responding to harsh criticism. It is the quiet 10 minutes of stretching before going to bed. It is the conscious, deliberate decision to speak kindly to your own reflection when you make a mistake. These micro-actions seem entirely insignificant in the heat of the moment. They do not make for thrilling cinema or viral content, but over the span of months and years, they compound with astonishing, undeniable force, gradually sculpting a life of profound substance, quiet resilience, and deep personal integrity. We must recognize that the intense cultural obsession with goals often stems from a deep-seated fear of the present moment. We falsely believe that if we can just achieve enough, acquire enough wealth, or become enough in the eyes of the watching world, we will finally earn the permanent right to feel peaceful inside our own minds. We use future goals as a psychological tool to outrun our own internal discomfort. But true peace is never actually found at the finish line. It is found securely in the rhythm of the journey itself. When you surrender fully to the system, you are forced to make peace with the present tense. You are invited to find deep meaning in the ongoing process of becoming, rather than waiting anxiously for the illusion of a final arrival. You learn to extract genuine joy, not from the loud applause of others, but from the quiet, private satisfaction of knowing you honored your commitments to yourself today. This systematic approach requires a radical, courageous letting go of the ego. The ego desperately desires the grand public announcement, the dramatic overnight transformation, and the sweeping narrative of conquering the world against all odds. The ego wants to be seen rising victoriously, but true, sustainable growth, the kind of deep growth that survives the inevitable storms and tragedies of life, happens almost entirely in the quiet, unglamorous falling. It happens in the messy, imperfect middle chapters where absolutely nobody is watching you. It happens when you are tired, profoundly lonely, and filled with suffocating doubt, yet you still manage to perform the absolute smallest act of care for your future self. It is precisely in these quiet, unseen moments of systemic adherence that true character is forged and hardened. There is a quiet, almost spiritual dimension to this daily repetition that is rarely discussed in modern conversations about ambition and success. When you commit yourself to a daily system, you are engaging in a beautiful form of personal ritual. You are returning, day after day, to a practice that demands your physical and mental presence, a grounded mindfulness that roots you in the here and now. In the quiet repetition, you begin to notice the subtle, shifting textures of your own mind. You realize that feelings of boredom or frustration are often just the thin layer of emotion that sits right above profound psychological insight. By refusing to abandon your system when the initial excitement inevitably fades, you cross a critical threshold of emotional maturity. You stop being a restless tourist in your own life, constantly seeking the next thrill or the next sudden burst of motivation, and you become a dedicated resident willing to tend faithfully to your own garden even when the soil is dry and the sky is overcast. This deep, intentional residency in your own life cultivates a profound sense of inner peace that simply cannot be shaken by unpredictable external circumstances. Look closely at the individuals you admire most deeply. You will rarely find a magical source of superhuman strength. Instead, you find ordinary people who have mastered the difficult art of showing up when they absolutely do not feel like it. They have wisely outsourced success to the structural integrity of their days, intentionally constructing environments that make desired behaviors the path of least resistance. They remove friction from what matters and deliberately add it to what distracts, building a calm, orderly external world to gently guide them forward through the noise. Implementing this systems-based philosophy is fundamentally an act of profound self-love. It is acknowledging, without any shame, that you are a complex, fragile, and beautifully imperfect human being who simply cannot be expected to operate perfectly like a machine. It is a firm refusal to participate any longer in the toxic cultural cycle of endless grinding and subsequent self-punishment. When you build a system, you are essentially becoming your own benevolent, caring parent. You are setting out your clothes the night before, so your tired morning self does not have to make a difficult decision. You are preparing a healthy meal, not as a form of bodily restriction, but as a genuine gift of nourishment to the physical vessel that carries you through this world. You are establishing firm boundaries around your time and your emotional energy so that your spirit finally has the wide open space it needs to breathe, to rest, and to dream without interruption. Inevitably, despite your absolute best intentions, your system will sometimes break. There will be deeply painful seasons of grief, unexpected illness, or overwhelming external pressure where even the absolute smallest daily habits feel completely impossible to maintain. This is not a failure of your system. It is simply a reality of the human condition. The purely goal-oriented mind reacts to these difficult seasons with total despair, viewing them as permanent derailments of their identity. But the systems-oriented mind responds to these seasons with profound grace. It recognizes that the system is simply paused for a moment, not permanently destroyed. The psychological infrastructure remains completely intact, waiting patiently in the background for you to return when the storm has finally passed. You do not have to start completely from scratch. You only have to reach out and pick up the very next small, obvious thread. The eminent psychologist Carl Jung once noted that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will simply call it fate. Building systems is the highly practical application of making your unconscious patterns completely conscious. By deliberately and thoughtfully designing your daily habits, you bravely take the steering wheel back from the unpredictable winds of fate and transient emotional states. You stop wondering constantly why you never seem to make lasting progress, because you have finally illuminated the tiny daily choices that either carry you forward toward your values or hold you back in stagnation. You bring a bright, loving awareness to the mundane, elevating the completely ordinary moments of your average day into profound opportunities for quiet, lasting transformation. As we navigate the immense complexities of our individual journeys, let us gently release the suffocating grip of the ultimate destination. Let us stop demanding that we rise perfectly to every single occasion like mythological heroes, and instead let us focus all of our energy on building a floor so solid, so forgiving, and so deeply aligned with our true inner values that falling becomes simply another gentle way of resting. Let us fully embrace the slow, quiet, and deeply beautiful process of daily becoming. Let us permanently recognize that our human worth is not tied to our economic output. Our personal value is not measured by our proximity to a massive goal, and our lives are not something to be aggressively conquered, but rather something to be lived deeply and intentionally, one wonderfully ordinary moment at a time. You are already completely enough, exactly as you are, sitting right here in this very moment. Your worth is inherent, absolute, and completely untouchable by the opinions of others. The desire to grow and evolve is a beautiful natural expression of the human spirit, but it must never, ever be used as a weapon against your present self. As you move forward from this quiet moment, I encourage you to look at the vast landscape of your daily life, not with a harsh, critical eye searching endlessly for flaws, but with the warm, compassionate curiosity of an architect. Ask yourself how you can make it just slightly easier to be the person you wish to be tomorrow. Ask yourself what gentle, supportive structures you can put in place today to catch you when you are inevitably tired. Ask yourself how you can intentionally infuse your most ordinary, overlooked routines with a profound sense of sacredness and deep self-respect. The loud, chaotic world will constantly tell you to aim higher, to push harder, and to never settle for anything less than extraordinary. But there is a profound, quiet rebellion in choosing to focus entirely on the simple quality of your daily walk. There is immense, life-changing power in deciding that you will not be defined by the distant peaks you have yet to conquer, but rather by the grace, consistency, and kindness with which you navigate the valley you are walking through today. The journey of a lifetime is incredibly long. The terrain is often unpredictable and harsh, but the exact way we choose to walk it is entirely up to us. We build our true strength not through massive, fleeting exertions of exhausted willpower, but through the calm, steady, reliable rhythm of our daily systems, gradually transforming our smallest actions into a quiet, unstoppable symphony of lifelong resilience. The masterpiece of your life is not the distant destination, but the quiet courage of the system you choose today. If this message resonated with you, perhaps it will resonate with someone you know. Share this video with them. And if you're ready to continue building your foundation with us, please like and subscribe. Let's walk this path together.